Hi, and welcome to the show. Subscribe at kevinmd.com/podcast. Today, we welcome Kolleen Dougherty. She's an anesthesia and critical care physician. Today's Kevin MD article is Why This Doctor Stayed Stuck in a Job for Years and How She Finally Broke Free. Kolleen, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Kevin, for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
So let's start by briefly sharing your story.
Sure. So I was born and raised in New Jersey, and ever since I was a little girl, knew I wanted to be a physician. I then journeyed down to Atlanta, Georgia at Emory University, where I went to college, came back up north to Columbia College of Physicians and Surgeons in New York City, where I received my medical degree and stayed for my internship. And then I did my anesthesia and ICU training in Boston, both at Massachusetts General Hospital for my fellowship and the Brigham and Women's for my anesthesia residency. And then, thanks to my husband, who always vacationed in Maine, we decided to move up to Maine, and I've been in Maine ever since.
All right, wonderful. Let's talk about your Kevin MD article, Why This
Sure.
Doctor Stayed Stuck in a Job for Years and How She Finally Broke Free. So, before talking about the article, what led you to write it in the first place?
Well, I left my clinical job, which I was at for over 24 years, a little over a year ago now. And in that intervening time, the past year, I've had a lot of time, A, to catch up on my sleep, which has been magnificent. Can't oversell that. But also, I've had a lot of time to think about, why I stayed in my job a lot longer than I really knew I should have left. It was one of the best decisions I ever made to leave my job. I consider it right up there with the decision of where to do my training and marrying my wonderful husband and having my kids. It is one of the best decisions, but I realized I should have made that decision probably about 2 to 3 years earlier than I did. And so I really started wondering, why did I stay? Why didn't I leave when I really felt like I should have? And it really boiled down to what I consider three major reasons why I stayed longer than I should have. One was the psychological trap that was really popularized by Richard Thaler, the sunk cost fallacy, which affects all of us in different ways. For me, I think the biggest example is staying in a job that I knew I should have left. But it could be why you continue reading a book longer than you want to. Like, you don't really like the book, but you want to finish it. For some reason, you're just sticking it out. Or you go to a movie and you pay your ticket price and you hate the movie but you stay till the end even though you don't like it. And why do we do those things? So that was one of the big reasons. I felt like I had dedicated 24 years of my life to this one practice, and during that time I've created great relationships and built my professional reputation, and I felt like, wow, it's going to take me 24 years to get to the same place at another location. Or, I'm finally higher in the seniority list and I can finally pick better vacation. So why would I leave? And it was all those sunk cost fallacies that kept me there. That was one reason. Another major reason was fear, fear
Mhm.
of the unknown, fear of change. Going back to that expression of the devil you know is better than the devil you don't. Like,
Sure.
I just felt like, well, maybe this is the best there is, and I'll just stay because I was afraid. And the third one was loyalty. I felt I did spend 24 years with these partners and colleagues, and in some ways they do become your second family. I spent holidays with them, and we saw each other go through pregnancies and have children and celebrate all those major milestones. And so I felt a little guilty about leaving them behind in the situation that we were in. And so for those reasons, I really stayed a lot longer than I should have. And I wrote the article really to shed some light on it, to hopefully give people who might be pondering the same decision some things to really think about.
You mentioned earlier as part of your story that you have always dreamed of being a physician ever since you were a
Mhm.
little girl. So tell us what your job was like. Tell us what were some of
Sure.
the pressures that actually led you away from clinical medicine.
Well, when I started my job at my group, I was like number 24 physician. And over the past 2 decades, our group kept growing and growing and growing, and we soon blossomed to 80 physicians. And I felt like that collegial camaraderie that we did share initially it was really hard to maintain in a group of 80 people. I felt like I was just a number in a system. And then the pressures that we're all facing in medicine right now, the productivity, the treadmill, feeling like I didn't really get enough time to spend with patients. I just felt like for me, it was really time to take a step back and reevaluate where I wanted to see the next stage of my career at. And I'm not going to lie, the schedule was really tough as far as once you get to a certain size in a group, it was really hard to switch a call, for instance. If my children had an event that came up, it was hard to find someone to take that call, even though you would think with 80 people it would be easier. But we had so much subspecialization
Mhm.
and we covered, some people were credentialed at one location and not the other. So it really became problematic to fit the other priorities in my life into my schedule. So for those reasons, I really felt like I needed to move on.
And these difficulties weren't exclusive to just your practice. There weren't any other clinical options, other jobs, going part-time. Those weren't options before you decided to leave clinical medicine entirely.
Um, To be honest, there were some opportunities to maybe scale back a little bit. But for me, again, I felt like the whole environment of the hospital system that I was at and in the group I was at, it had changed so much from what I was used to that I really wanted just us to start over.
So you mentioned those three factors that kept you at this job probably longer
Mhm.
than you should have. So how did you navigate those feelings? Was there a final event that made you say, that's it? How did you eventually address those three causes that made you stay there longer than you should have?
I did a lot of self reflection. I also joined a few coaching programs. So I don't know if you're familiar with Empowering Women Physicians, that is a professional group that Sunny Smith, who is a family medicine physician out of San Diego, runs. And so it was a lot of internal thought work, I'd say, about what direction I wanted my life in and what other goals I might have as I am getting ready to transition to a whole new stage. I have four children, and three were in college. One, my oldest just recently graduated, which
Right.
is exciting. And I have one left in high school who will be hopefully going to college next year. I mean, she's a great student, but we're in that throngs of
Sure.
her application process right now. But I kind of felt like, wow, now's a good time for me to really think about that next chapter in my life and what I want it to look like. And I really wanted to explore some other opportunities, both within clinical medicine and outside of medicine.
And now that you've made a decision, any regrets? How do you feel about it?
No, no regrets whatsoever. I'm not going to lie, the first few months were a little challenging as far as, waking up and being like, what do I do today? For so long in my life, I think I've always had that schedule. As an
Right.
anesthesiologist, I would get to work by 6:30 in the morning, and there's a certain feeling of excitement and accomplishment when by 10 a.m. I've already, taken care of three patients and launched their anesthetics. And,
Sure.
the rest of the world is just getting their first cup of coffee on. So it was a little challenging to navigate the next steps per se. But I think that was also a needed time for me to really sit back and start to enjoy time and understand what I wanted to accomplish next.
So if you were to replay all of this and
Mhm.
reflect and think about what you could have done differently, maybe leaving earlier. Is there anything that you would have done differently?
I think just really trying to figure out why the reasons I was saying were they really things that I needed to work through, or was it really just my limiting beliefs that were holding me back? Because I think so often our primitive brain tries to keep us safe.
Yeah.
Our primitive brain wants us to not take risky steps. It's there to keep us alive, from the very beginning. And so I think a lot of my staying was really based on a fear and a limiting belief. Whereas now that I've moved forward, I feel like there's so many opportunities that I didn't even know were out there that are becoming more and more apparent as I, venture forward and continue to like reach out to other people. I reconnected with so many past friends from both medical school and my residency and training and my fellowship. I've reached out to residents that I helped train. One of the nice things about my job was that we trained anesthesia residents, and I also interacted in the ICU setting with surgical residents and ED residents. And so, quite honestly, there's probably hundreds of residents that I've
Sure.
helped train over the last 24 years. And it's been really nice to reconnect with them and find out, what are they up to and what's their system of medicine like? They're scattered throughout the entire United States. So I spent some time really touching base with a lot of past friends and colleagues. And that's been really a fun, exciting, eye-opening experience, quite frankly.
So tell me some of the reaction that you receive, both from your colleagues and from these people that you're reaching out to. Do they ever say, I wish I could have done what you did?
Yes. I mean, I do realize that I'm somewhat in a privileged position as far as being able to kind of walk away from my job from a financial standpoint. I mean, some people don't really have that opportunity. I think because I've spent 24 years at my job and I worked full time for the full 24 years, and I'm very blessed and lucky to have my husband who also works. We were able to financially do that and give me this time to really step away from working at all and just really contemplate my next steps. And I do appreciate that some people don't have that opportunity to do that for whatever reason, financial stability being one of the bigger challenges that keep people stuck. But but absolutely, I think there's a lot of people who, you know, want to find things different, but they're just not sure how to go about doing that or what's the first step to take besides quitting. I mean, obviously, if you're financially dependent on an income stream, it's always probably best to find that next job before leaving your current
Sure.
job. But I do think that sometimes time to just be with your own thoughts and really reflect is really, at least was very crucial to my journey.
So, what kind of things do you advise these people who wish they could have done what you did? You mentioned reflection. So, tell us more about what exactly that entails, or how long did you have to reflect before you made that final decision?
Great question. I think for me, reflection was a lot of thinking about values. I think, and what kind of legacy you want to leave. I think it's easy to get caught up in a day to day existence where, you go to work, you have your schedule of patients in front of you, and you do a great job getting through that one day.
Sure.
And it's easy for those days to pile up. And that's what I did for 24 years. I mean, I'm very proud of the work that I did, and I don't regret taking care of any of those patients. But it's easy to just kind of stay stagnant and stay in that, oh, maybe next summer I'll do something or next year I'll do something. And you just get by day to day versus all of a sudden you're 10 years into it and you
Sure.
haven't really accomplished any of those other things you want to. So I think really trying to think about what else you might want in your life or want to accomplish, because not to be negative, but we all don't know how long we have on this planet.
Yeah.
And I think waiting for tomorrow to always live your dreams or get to do all the things you want to do isn't always the best plan. And waiting for things to change, which is something I did for a long time
Sure.
too. Wait, oh, it's going to get better next year when, we hire more people, or,
Sure. Sure.
oh, it'll get better when we get the new electronic medical record up and running, or when we get more scribes, or when we get whatever it is that, people are thinking will crack the nut that will get things better for you. It may not come, or it may not come in a time frame that works for you. And so I think really trying to understand what's important to you, your values, your legacy, what do you want else in your life, and taking a little bit more ownership of that and realizing that you have more authority
Sure.
over what you're doing than you realize.
Now, is this it for you? Do you think that you may have any inkling to go back to clinical medicine?
Yeah, as much as I love the last year off, Kevin, I really do miss taking care of patients. I miss that feeling of helping someone at the most vulnerable time in their life. Often people think doctors go into anesthesia because they don't want to talk to patients or they don't want to, interact with the patient. And I wholeheartedly disagree. I mean, I think we see patients at the most vulnerable time of their life. They're coming in for surgery, they're facing one of the most stressful events of their life, they're scared. And they have no idea who we are. And within a matter of minutes, we have to establish rapport with them and really try to understand not only their medical comorbidities and their needs, but also alleviate as much anxiety as we can and build that relationship. And I really do miss the patients that I was very, very blessed to help take care of. And I do miss interacting with physician colleagues and talking the talk and the banter of medicine. And so I do think I will go back. What I often tell people who ask is that I don't think I'm going to go back to a full time, pick your vacation a year and a half ahead of time, take call every third or fourth night or whatever. That's not something I'm really interested in doing. So right now I'm starting to explore per diem and locum opportunities where I can pick and choose, if you will, the weeks that really work for my schedule and my children and my family schedule and get those touch points of patient care that I really am missing. But I also don't have to get mired in the politics of the hospital organizations or the business of medicine.
Sure.
I don't want to have to go in and go to meetings about how to earn more revenue streams from delivering anesthesia. That's not something that is really high on my priority list.
We're talking to Kolleen Dougherty. She's an anesthesia and critical care physician. Today's Kevin MD article is Why This Doctor Stayed Stuck in a Job for Years and How She Finally Broke Free. Kolleen will end with some of your take home messages to the Kevin MD audience.
Sure. I'd say one of the biggest take homes is change is hard. I think, again, our brain wants us to stay safe. And so it will put up a lot of barriers in your thoughts about why you shouldn't leave. And I'd say really try to look deeply into those reasons and see if they really are true reasons to stay or things that you can alter to make it so that it is a better environment for you if you're looking to leave. And I think the biggest one I'd say is indecision is a decision. For so long, I told myself, I knew there was a question of should I leave, and I just wouldn't answer it. And I thought I somehow putting it off was easier, but that in itself is a decision to stay, even though I didn't recognize it as it was. So I think realizing that if you want to leave, really try to figure out why and how best to move forward so that you can live the best life that you want to for yourself.
Kolleen, thank you so much for sharing your story time and insight. Thanks again for coming on
You're
the show.
welcome. Thanks for having me, Kevin. Really appreciate it.